Look at this. Now look at all of these. If you're not familiar with these paintings, what do you think they all have in common? They're all a part of an art movement called Romanticism. In this video, I will be diving into Romanticism and how the relationship between mankind, nature, and emotion is depicted in art. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes, I'd like to disclaim that I'm not an art historian. I'm just a high schooler with a passion for art, so don't take my word as fact or use it for like an essay yourself, okay? Everything said comes from my own research from various articles, essays, and videos. If anything is wrong or you want to add more information, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd love to learn more. With that said, let's get into it. So what is Romanticism? What was the catalyst to this huge art movement, and who were the most prominent figures of the movement? You may have heard of the movement in a history, art, or an English class, since many are taught about it, and if so, then you might recognize the names or the art pieces that I speak about. Like personally for me, in middle school English class, we were always taught about William Wordsworth and John Keats, which they're both very iconic people from the Romantic period, and they wrote very famous poems like I Wandered as Lonely as a Cloud. We had to pick that apart in an English class once before. But I'm not really here to talk about literature. I'm going to talk about visual arts. So whether or not you're familiar with the movement, let me explain first. Defined by Merriam-Webster, Romanticism is a literary, artistic, and philosophical movement originating in the 18th century, characterized chiefly by a reaction against neoclassicism and an emphasis on the imagination and emotions. Now, for all my dodo brain bitches, let me explain it a little bit further. So, neoclassicism was a movement in the 18th century, essentially reviving classical art forms, which usually favored logic, symmetry, and ancient art techniques, whereas Romanticism favored emotions, fluidity, and individuality. These movements, like Neoclassicism, Enlightenment, and Romanticism, were widespread in mainly Western countries like Europe and Spain. But Romanticism was more of an underdog. Like, Enlightenment and Neoclassicism were like the top popular movements, I guess you could say. To bounce off of that, Romanticism was started as a direct opposing viewpoint of Neoclassicism and Enlightenment. Romanticism was not only an artistic movement, but a way of thinking, a mindset. To go back to Enlightenment, Enlightenment was a mindset that emphasized reason and logic more. Oh my god, it's pouring. Damn. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's like raining hardcore and I'm out in my car. Sorry about that. Enlightenment as a mindset emphasized that reason and logic were more important than sentiment and passion. Many romantics did not like the message of enlightenment. Many romantics believe that life and nature is a beautiful thing, and experiencing that while leaning into your emotional side is a part of the human experience. When we say romance in this context, we aren't talking about couples kissing or holding hands in the rain, but man's love for nature, individuality, and the human existence as a whole. Now that we have learned about the catalyst to the movement and the foundation of the viewpoints, let's get into some famous artworks and how they encapsulate the romantic sentiment. Since we know that Romanticism is about emotional fervor, how do you think this would be displayed in art? At the beginning of the video, I showed images of famous romance paintings. Take this one, for example. This is The Nightmare, created in 1781 by Henry Fuseli. In this image, you can see a woman draped in white fabric laying on the side of what seems to be a bed or a bench. Sitting on top of her is what seems to be a demon or an incubus. It's, I guess, a theory that it's an incubus, and it's somewhat sensual, like the painting is somewhat sensual or has a sexual meaning. What I didn't mention earlier is that Romanticism also honed in on the supernatural and paranormal, which is exactly what is represented in the painting. Though I don't think that's the main focus of the piece. Of course, it's sure to catch your eye. Like a weird shadowy demon is not something you normally see, so of course you're gonna pay attention to that, but if you really focus on the lighting, it's focused entirely on the woman's torso and face. When I first saw this painting, I always wondered why the artist put emphasis specifically on the woman's face and not the demon. Personally, I think the lighting makes it all the more creepier, and that was the point of it. Your eyes will automatically focus on the woman in white light. Then as you take in more of the painting, you'll see the demon, which is jarring and bizarre, especially for a time like the 1700s. The incubus is lurking in the shadows, making it feel like it's a hallucination, or a dream, hence the name, The Nightmare. Also, weird fun fact that I came upon while researching this painting. Apparently Sigmund Freud had a print of this painting displayed in his apartment, which I find rather amusing. But anyways, now let's look at another famous piece. Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, created in 1818 by Caspar David Friedrich. I searched up a pronunciation of Friedrich, and it's pronounced in German, but I couldn't do the weird thing that you do with the R's, so
Friedrich.
I'm not gonna even try. I'll make a fool of myself. This painting portrays so many aspects of Romanticism, the focus on nature, the man staring out into the ocean, and the sort of whimsy coming from the piece. Both this and The Nightmare are oil paintings and have a soft, floaty look compared to the harsh shadows of works like Pablo Picasso or Caravaggio. Even though Romanticism focuses mainly on sentiment rather than technique, I think this is what a lot of Romanticism paintings have in common. Very soft, and especially the landscapes are very pleasing to the eye. However, that is not always the case. In works like Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, it's rather serene and peaceful, but I find that this isn't always the case in Romanticism art. It's not very common. While I was researching the infamous paintings of this era, I saw many that presented a battle between man and nature, rather than the harmony between the two. For example, The Raft of Medusa, made in 1818-1819 by another, European name. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Theodore
Géricault.
Géricault. I can't do it. Okay, I'm not even gonna try it. In this, you can clearly see, right off the bat, a devastating portrayal of what looks to be a shipwreck during a storm. In this, there is many men who look injured, people reaching out, and a man trying to flag down oncoming ships. Like I said earlier, it shows a battle between man and nature, and in this image, nature is winning. From an artist's perspective, it's very interesting to look at all of the people. So much is going on, and it must have taken hours to paint. Imagine, hours to paint all of these people individually. Also, I believe the painting is based off a true story, but I don't know the story, and I'm not entirely sure. Now that I've shown multiple examples, can you tell the underlying message in all of these? If not, let's compare it to Neoclassicism art. The Neoclassicism work looks a lot more vibrant and has more characteristics from ancient art techniques from Rome or the Renaissance period. Now compare Romanticism and Neoclassicism to unrelated art movements: Cubism, Dadaism, pop art, Surrealism. Romanticism is very unique in its own way. Unlike the art movements previously mentioned, Romanticism leaned very heavily into morals and principles, whereas Cubism and pop art is defined by its techniques. There are so many other artworks I could talk about, and I'm not even diving into the literature side of this movement. That's a whole other video, hour-long video about just the poetry and novels. So if you're interested in that, do your own research, because I'm not getting into all that. But anyways, Romanticism in a nutshell is a movement started in the 18th century as a direct opposing response to Enlightenment. What came from this period was beautiful art and literature with imagery of nature, the paranormal, strong emotions, and passion. It's genuinely such a nuanced topic, and I suggest researching into it because it's very interesting. I love researching and learning stuff, especially about art and art history, but school kind of sucked the fun out of it for me, so I just did this as a little side project with a topic I'm actually interested in, so I hope you enjoyed. Also, I forgot to add this in the background of the video. It's just me doing a sketchbook spread with like female anatomy and female characters. Did it in my ELO sketchbook with a number 2 pencil. So yeah, that's all. That's it from me. Again, don't take this video too seriously. I did all of this research on my own and wrote the script in like a couple days, okay? So don't come at me. Yeah, that's it for me. Bye. Subscribe, or I'll bite off your fingers like baby carrots. Okay, bye.